it is interesting to see not just where the Raptors finish, but who they end up playing in the first round, because some of these teams, Jack, don't exactly look like they are playoff caliber teams. When you look at the Brooklyn Nets and the Washington Wizards, it just seems like the field maybe was a little too big for this format.
Well, obviously if the Nets were healthy, they had a good year. They've had a good team. Unfortunately, Kyrie Irving's been hurt. Kevin Durant's been out the entire year. But, the Nets, when they've been healthy, have been a good team. And in my opinion, a solid 7 seed. And, if KD was healthy and Kyrie was healthy the whole year, they'd be much higher in the standings, obviously. And then, but they've been just absolutely devastated with injuries. And now, unfortunately, some of the positive tests, COVID tests, and it's really compromised their team. On the other hand, you look at Washington. I wasn't a fan of this 22-team format, I thought we should just go right into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at the Wizards, obviously Bradley Beal's not going to play. Beatrins, who's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, was a terrific shooter. So they're not very good either. So I would say that Orlando will likely rise to the 7th seed. And you're going to have Brooklyn and Washington and, I guess last man standing, I guess. Right now Brooklyn has the advantage there in terms of number of wins and all that. And for the Raptors, it's a matter of do they hold on to the 2 seed or do they fall to the 3? If they fell to the 3, it would probably be Indiana because Victor Oladipo isn't going to be able to play. He's coming back from, a serious injury. He came back a little bit towards the end of the season before things got shut down. He had an Achilles tear, and actually it happened against the Raptors a year ago. So I would imagine they would probably end up being the team that falls to 6. So you're probably looking at playing Indiana or Orlando, and they played Orlando, obviously, last year in the playoffs. So, to me, I think the Raptors are a really good team. I think they're a contending team. And the thing I love about the Raptors in this whole thing, because home court has become a non-factor, you're playing in a neutral environment. And the thing I love about the Raptors this past year, I don't have it in front of me, but if I'm not mistaken, they had the same record at home as they did on the road.
Yep. Both
records were tremendous. So to me, it's the old line, I don't know if it was Aristotle or Socrates, some smart guy said, excellence is a habit, not an act. I think the Raptors have really good habits, and in a neutral environment, I fully expect them to be really good, just like they were at home this year, just like they were on the road.
Mm-hmm. Jack, reach back and put your coach's hat on, and you're Nick Nurse, you know the Raptors well. How are you handling this first group of games? Are you pretty much leaving it to the players to dictate what happens initially? Because the temptation's going to be there to overcoach in all the sports that are coming back.
It's a legitimate point. I've actually talked a little bit with Nick about it. My experience with the 50-game season in the 98-99 lockout season, as well as I think it was 2011-12, it was a 66-game season, and now these teams will end up playing 72 when it's all said and done. The one thing that really suffered dramatically was the flow, the execution, the picturesque play of offense. Teams really got stuck in the mud and got bogged down, and it wasn't pretty to watch. And I really think the first 8 games of this are going to look similar because the teams that are there, particularly if you look at the Raptors schedule, I mean, they're playing a terrific. They have the toughest schedule of any of the teams. Good teams expose you. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I think your offense suffers a little bit. The good thing the Raptors have is I think they're an excellent defensive team individually, collectively. And I think you got to, you might want to put a little more emphasis on maybe going a little deeper into your roster, put a greater emphasis on your defense, which creates, if you get stops, missed shots, turnovers, you're able to get out and get your running game going, and it loosens up the pressure on having to execute a ton in your half-court offense. So, to me, as you go along in this, I think the better teams, the teams that will advance, will be the ones that have good role definition, good chemistry, good shot selection, ball protection. They're just sound. They don't beat themselves. They don't shoot themselves in the foot. Because I think some of this stuff early on is I'm not going to lie, I think it's going to be a little sloppy and disappointing and hard to watch because guys haven't picked up a basketball in a while, and it's not going to look like it normally does. And even when you get in the playoffs, you're going to say, man, that doesn't look as good as a playoff game I watched 5 years ago. I think if you have an expectation that it's going to look as good, I think it's going to be disappointing.
Jack Armstrong joining us on OverDrive. The Raptors have arrived in Orlando. They spent the last 2 weeks in Fort Myers. They had their small groups doing workouts. But I guess the more important fact out of that trip to Fort Myers is 0 positive tests. How much has the last couple of weeks become an advantage for this Raptors team as they now enter the hub?
You know, when I look at this team and knowing the people involved, the thing that jumps out at me is the fact that it's a very mature professional group. So now you take that one group and you add another 21. And some of these teams in particular, when they know that they're going home, how are they going to conduct themselves? Are they going to continue to be vigilant within that bubble? Even if you have a playoff series where you have a team down 0-2, 0-3, and they're saying, get me out of here, you know, that to me is a concern a little bit because that could compromise the better teams. But to me, I don't think the Raptors will compromise themselves at all. I think it's a very good, mature group that I think the fact that they were able to get away collectively as a group, and obviously, yet they've been separated on a number of fronts because of the protocol. I think they all get it already. Like it all resonates. It all rings true. They know the seriousness of it. They've bought into it. And to me, again, I think it just speaks to the professionalism and maturity that this group has that I think will definitely give them an added edge compared to their competition.
Jack, is it too simple to say this team will go as Kyle Lowry goes? Or is there someone else that you think could be a real sleeper in this entire mix?
Well, you know, I mean, I said it in the beginning of the season before we even started. You know, you lose Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard, 2 guys that were excellent players. Obviously, Kawhi was next level. The 2 guys that were the most important players for the Raptors this year were, Norm Powell and OG Anunoby. And when the Raptors are really ready to play at another level, it's when those 2 young guys are playing with – they don't have to be great. They just have to be good and got to be consistent. And the other element is health. I think if you have Marc Gasol healthy and people are healthy and ready to play, I feel very confident that they have the know-how, the institutional knowledge, the experience, the togetherness, the professionalism. They got a great coach who will handle himself, I think, in an exceptional fashion, in interesting dynamics, to say the least. But I think those 2 guys are the most important elements.
You know, and you brought up Marc Gasol, and it's fascinating, Jack, because, you know, we've never had this before. We've never had a 3.5 to 4 month pause in the middle of the year, and players can go off, and who knows what they'll do with themselves, whether it's finding a gym or working out. In Mark's case, and he's not the only athlete we've seen, he kind of transformed his body. And as a veteran who plays a certain style, how does that help him in a playoff run? That he is cut some weight and he's suddenly this people want to say this like this runway model, but he's the chiseled Marc Gasol now.
Well, give him credit. You know, like I always say about myself, I'm in good shape for the shape I'm in. You know, so give Marc Gasol. You know, he bought in, and and he's a free agent, as is Serge Ibaka and Fred VanVleet at the end of the year. You know, and now you have all your colleagues and everyone together, 22 of the 30 teams under one roof. So, you're not only trying to win for your own team, but you're trying to make an impression about maybe the next contract that theoretically could be the last contract of his career. So you want to, your first impressions are lasting. You don't get a second chance to make the right first impression. What's the impression people are going to get of you in this environment? So I give him a lot of credit. He's critical. I mean, he passes it, he screens, he rebounds. He can stretch the defense out with his three-point shooting. He just has a tremendous feel for what it takes to win. He understands what the other 9 guys on the floor are doing, and he sees it all and feels it all, and he's a great teammate. And most importantly, he's a traffic cop for your defense. He's a tremendous talker on your defense in terms of screen and roll coverage, all the different screen sequences, and just is really dialed in, and I think lifts the basketball intellect of everyone on the team. I love watching him going into timeouts, within timeouts, walking out of timeouts, and the discussions he has with teammates, and the level of alertness and dial-in from his teammates when they have an exchange with him. He really gets everyone going in terms of nobody's goofing around. They're all dialed into being professional and winning games.
Jack, before I let you go, I kind of buried the most important question. Are you ready for the NBA playoffs?
I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. And, obviously we have 8 games to play before that. And the first one right off the bat, I think it's August 1st. I don't have it in front of me, but I think that's the date. The Raptors open up against the Lakers. And the Lakers will have played, if I'm not mistaken, on July 30th, which is 2 days prior, against the Clippers. That's an incredibly tough game for the Lakers to play. A lot of emotion and a lot of attention will be on that. And quite frankly, I don't think either team will be at a point to play like they normally look or they would have looked in a traditional playoff environment. And now the Raptors are getting them on the second game, and it's their first game out of the chute. So I'm excited about it. I think the Raptors, people are like, whoa, what about, this schedule they're playing is really tough. I think it's good. I think playing 8 good opponents, we all know about that level of exposure where you play good teams and, you find out a little bit more about yourself when you play good opponents. And I think it toughens you up, it hardens you, it gets you better and better for the rigors of what the playoffs are. So I don't know what they're going to look like for those 8 games, what their record's going to be, but I do think it'll help them be sharper and finer tuned for the playoff games when it comes.